Hello, everyone. Welcome to our virtual panel. My name is Jonathan, and I will be your moderator today. Before we get started, I'll go over some housekeeping real quick. So once again, this is a 1-hour panel with the Q&As. Our chats are disabled, but feel free to use the Q&A function that you see below to type in your questions, and we'll ask them live. And if you need any more information, you can always go to visit.berkeley.edu, or you can always email us at tour@berkeley.edu. And with that, I'll introduce myself once again. Hello, my name is Jonathan. I am today's moderator. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm from Daly City, California, and I am a junior majoring in public health. A few of the things I'm involved in on campus is I'm a fall program for freshman ambassador. So that's one of our freshman programs that we have here on campus. I'm also part of the suitcase clinic that works with the homeless community within within Berkeley. I'm also part of Greek Life, and I'm also part of the American Red Cross. Now I'll hand it off to some of our other panelists today.
Hello, everyone. My name is Isha. Thank you so much for joining us today. I use the she, her pronouns, and I'm currently a junior at UC Berkeley, majoring in bioengineering with minors in public policy and design innovation. I am an international student. I'm from Toronto, Canada, which is where I'm speaking with you from right now. In terms of my involvement on campus, I am currently an undergraduate student researcher at the UCSF School of Medicine, so I get to study the brain, which is pretty cool. I am also a Fung Fellow for Health and Technology, so I get to work with industry partners to come up with solutions to healthcare problems. And lastly, I am going to be a biomedical engineering intern this upcoming summer at Medtronic, which is a pretty big biomedical device and technology company in LA. So if you have any questions regarding that, I'm also happy to answer. I'll pass it off to our other panelist.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Will, and my pronouns are he, him, and his. I am from the Bay Area, so pretty close. I'm from Mill Valley, just north of San Francisco. And I am currently a second year, intending to major in human geography with minors in Portuguese and applied linguistics. Some of my involvement on campus includes Delta Phi Epsilon, which is a co-ed professional foreign service fraternity, Reuse, which is our on-campus thrift store, as well as Cal Running Club, Amnesty International. And before coming to Berkeley, I actually took a gap year and studied abroad in Spain for the whole year. So I have some experience with study abroad. And I am also in URAP currently, which is our undergraduate research apprenticeship program through the Institute for European Studies. So that's also been really fun. And with that, I'll hand it off to Beatrice.
Hi, everyone. My name is Beatrice. I use the pronouns she, her, and hers. I'm also from the Bay Area, but a little closer to campus. I'm from Oakland, which is right next to Berkeley. I'm currently a sophomore, also intending to major in human geography, but planning to double major in political economy as well. And apart from being a campus ambassador, I'm involved with the Daily Californian, which is our university's independent student-run newspaper, and I'm the editor of the blog section there. And then I'm also involved in the dance community, in Dance Works, and Greek Life.
Sweet, thank you. So these are our panelists for today, and we can get started with our questions. So our first question is for Isha, or before that, there's actually a poll that we'll launch. And that poll is just asking you who you are, giving us a better idea of who we're talking to today. So definitely fill out that poll. And now I'll ask our first question. So our first question is for Isha, and my question is, how does Berkeley help to find jobs after you graduate? And are there resources for internships or on-campus work?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jonathan. So kind of now coming into my junior year at Cal, thinking about what's after Berkeley is definitely really important and something that's been on my mind. And UC Berkeley has provided me with some amazing resources to actually navigate this. And so, as I kind of mentioned in my introduction, I'm going to be interning this summer at Medtronic, which has been like one of my dream companies to work at since freshman year as an R&D biomedical engineer. And and first off, I found out about this internship through a Berkeley platform called Handshake. It's like our very own version of LinkedIn, pretty much, where we're kind of connected to other alumni of Berkeley, but more importantly, connected to employers that specifically want to hire UC Berkeley students. So they have stuff for on-campus jobs, they have stuff for internships, they also have stuff for like full-time jobs post-graduation. So it was really great to first find out about this through a career fair that was hosted on the Handshake platform by our career center at Berkeley. And it was very niche. They had like an entire career fair for biotech and life sciences. So that way I was able to really find something in my field. And similarly, they had that for political science, service or whatever field you're interested in. So I would say that was definitely very helpful. And then on top of that, UC Berkeley has an incredible alumni connection. And my final round interviewer of my 7 rounds of interviews happened to be a UC Berkeley alumni. And so that was really, really great that I kind of had that connection with them because they were a UC Berkeley alumni and they also completed engineering at Berkeley. So they kind of understood like the rigor of it and the kind of coursework that I do and how like the technical skills that I've gained from Berkeley are a good fit for their specific department. So that was really great to kind of have that connection. And I feel like you'll find that wherever you go, I have a lot of friends who did study abroad and they like would be walking with a Cal shirt in whatever country they're in and somebody would say, "Go Bears." So definitely our alumni connection is very large and that has been an incredible part of finding internships and jobs and whatnot. And also just to kind of wrap up with like on campus, with the on campus part of the question, being a campus ambassador is a job. It was actually really easy to find and like also has a really great kind of benefit of being able to work from the convenience of our home, even like in the middle of a pandemic. So there's a ton of on-campus job opportunities for students as well that you often hear from like fellow students from.
Thank you, Isha. I definitely agree. There are like a ton of different resources, whether it's the Career Center, Handshake. We have, and a lot of alumni too, definitely from our large university. So moving on to our next question now. This one's for Beatrice. And this question is, what is the workload like? If you want to potentially double major, would this be manageable? And will we still have like a work-life balance? Beatrice?
Yeah. So I am planning to double major, but I'll just put it out there. I came into Berkeley having no idea what I wanted to study, which means that I didn't even get started on like major requirements right away. So it definitely is possible to double major as long as you do your research and plan out the classes that you need to take to fulfill the requirements of both the majors. And I would also highly recommend that you talk to the major advisors because they know exactly what you're getting into and they're very open and willing to talk to students even if they're not entirely sure that that's what they want to major in, but they'll help you kind of think it through and then also talk about potential double majors. Within the College of Letters and Science, if you're planning on double majoring, you can overlap 2 of your upper division classes. So for example, my political economy major has a concentration, which you design yourself. So part of the reason I chose it is because a lot of those concentration classes actually are geography classes. So that works really well, but I know that it is possible even if your majors aren't as closely related. A lot of people do choose to double major. There's no pressure to. And then in terms of workload, I would say, I mean, academics at Berkeley are kind of intense. We are one of the top public universities in the world. So like you have to be prepared for that. But I think that once you learn how to manage your time effectively, you definitely can find that work-life balance. I'd like to think that I found it as long as you, yeah, some weeks will be more intense than others, but I think it is definitely possible to figure it all out.
Thank you, Beatrice, for your insight on double majoring. So our next question now is for Will. And this question is, what are some popular extracurriculars and how can I get a good balance of academic and social life at Berkeley?
Yeah, that's a really great question. It sort of ties into what Beatrice was just saying. I think that in terms of the time management, that's sort of like an essential pillar of being a college student. I think almost all of us ambassadors will say Google Calendar is a lifesaver, and it's really fantastic for figuring out what you have time for and what you don't, essentially. I would also just add that it's sort of up to you what you want to do. Obviously, you have classes that you need to get done, but outside of that, you can do more academic clubs, you can do athletics, you can do clubs that are just for fun, that don't relate to anything you plan on studying later. There's really a lot of different options. I wouldn't say that any sort of like extracurricular is the most popular. We have such a huge student body, it's sort of hard to, nothing really overshadows anything else. I will say that there are definitely a few thousand students who are in Greek life, whether it's professional like mine or traditional like Beatrice's sorority. There's also lots of different other professional organizations that help with getting in touch with those alumni or getting you ready for interviews or a certain discipline or anything like that. There's lots of different intramural sports teams from, uh, typical sports like tennis or soccer to ones you've probably never even heard of. And I'd also just say that there are a lot of really, I don't know, random clubs in my mind, just things that you've never heard of probably. My favorite, for example, is hang gliding club. I didn't even think you could have that as a club in college, but it does exist. I've also gone to entomology club looking at bugs. There's so many different kinds that honestly, whatever you want to do, there's probably an option. So in regards to time management, it's just choosing which options work best for you and then making sure you have time in your schedule and balancing that. It's not too difficult, to be honest. It just takes some time and some practice.
Yeah, we definitely have over 1,000 like clubs on student registered clubs on campus. So definitely like a multitude of ways to get involved, whether it's like you're interested in volunteering for the community or consulting nonprofits or for-profit businesses or anything like that. Really, there's probably something that you'll find your interest in. So our next question is from one of our attendees, and this attendee is interested in bioengineering, and this question is for Isha. Why would you say Berkeley is better than other schools for bioengineering, and why did you like choose Berkeley?
For sure. First off, excited to have someone on the tour who's interested in bio-E. It's definitely a very kind of like niche major, so that's good to hear. I would say I had three main reasons for choosing uh, bioengineering at Berkeley. The first one being that for me, when I was looking into bioengineering, I really wanted to make sure that the school I attended gave me enough flexibility to still pursue other things that I was interested in. So, for instance, even though I am a bioengineering major, I'm like still doing a minor in public policy and design innovation because I'm really fascinated on like how we can apply engineering to humanities and like kind of integrate the two. And the second thing was that I was kind of split on whether I wanted to go in like a pre-med bioengineering route or whether I wanted to go on an industry like entrepreneurship MBA kind of route. So I wanted a university where I can have either option kind of available to me. So first off, Berkeley's bioengineering program has very close ties with UCSF School of Medicine, which is a top-ranked medical school nationally. And a lot of our students, especially in the bioengineering department, tend to do research at UCSF because the master's program in Bio-E is a dual degree between Berkeley and UCSF. So automatically, like we get a lot of access to their faculty and a lot of like joint professors as well. So that was one thing. And so now I am working at UCSF and it's a really, really cool experience. I get to work with like neurologists, patient data, and like all that, even on a virtual platform right now. So that's super cool to have. And then my second reason was the concentrations within bioengineering. So I would say a lot of the other schools that I was accepted to mostly had concentrations where it was like bioengineering plus electrical or bioengineering plus mechanical, whereas Berkeley kind of had specific concentrations in like biomedical imaging, cell and tissue engineering, and also biomedical devices, which showed to me that it was more niche in terms of its coursework, and I was able to get a more specific kind of learning experience, which I wanted. So I'm doing a concentration in like biomedical devices, and I get to take a lot of cool classes in that. So that was another reason. And then finally was, for me, it was really important to go to a school that that had like a campus culture where I could, where people, it was a lot more collaborative than competitive. And when I visited Berkeley, it was very evident that the bioengineering program was like that. And I'm sure Beatrice and Will can say like their programs are also like that. So that was definitely the third reason. Like I clearly saw that people were willing to help each other, and it wasn't a competitive engineering stereotypical environment. In fact, it was a lot more collaborative. So that's kind of why I chose bioengineering at Berkeley, and why I think it is truly a strong contender when thinking of undergraduate bio-E programs.
Thank you for that very in-depth answer, Isha. That was definitely a lot of information. Hopefully our attendees enjoyed that and continue to ask some more questions. So continuing on now, our next question is for Beatrice. And this question is, what is there to do off campus, like in the city of Berkeley?
The short answer to that is there's a lot to do in the city of Berkeley. I've like lived here essentially my whole life. So the fact that I chose to stay here for college, I think says a lot to this question because I'm still finding new things to do. Our campus is located in a really ideal location because we're in the heart of the Bay Area, but then you also have a lot of access to nature, both on campus. We have Strawberry Creek running through our campus and a lot of kind of quieter areas with a lot of trees. We also have some amazing fire trails right behind our campus. So that's one of my personal favorite things to do, is to hike up those trails. There's also a lot of parks if you want to hike even more up in the East Bay Hills. And then also if you want to drive over to Marin, there's a lot more hiking there. And then there's also just a lot of cultural events. Right on the edge of our campus is the Berkeley Art Museum and Pacific Film Archive. They have a lot of interesting exhibits, and actually there's some classes at Berkeley that work with that museum to curate exhibits, so that's super cool. And Berkeley students have access to that. Also around campus, there are just so many restaurants, like every type of food you could want, you can find it, and it'll probably be pretty good. And then we also have Oakland and San Francisco and the entire Bay Area at our disposal. You can take BART, which is Bay Area Rapid Transit, and that's kind of like our subway system here. So you can take that throughout the Bay Area. You can get to San Francisco in just about 30 minutes, and you can do sightseeing. There's also dance performances, music performances, plays, like literally everything you could want to do. I'm sure you can find it around our campus.
Thank you, Beatrice. I definitely agree. We have like fire trails that have like beautiful views of the Golden Gate Bridge and Bay Bridge and a bunch of other things to do in Berkeley and around the city. So moving on, our next question is for Will. And this question is, how do you make friends at Berkeley, and is it hard as a freshman? Will?
Yeah, that's a really good question. First, I'll also add on a little bit to what Beatrice mentioned, that there's so much in the Bay Area. Having grown up in the Bay Area myself, I actually had a lot of friends in high school who would drive to the East Bay, or Berkeley specifically. Berkeley has insanely good food, so it was often for that, but also there's just so much to do. So someone who's grown up like outside of the East Bay, but still in the Bay Area, I see it all the time, and I even knew about it before looking into colleges. So there's definitely a lot to do. And a lot of those things you can do with friends is a great way to make friends. Speaking of this question, I think that it really depends on the person, on how they've made their friends. I feel like there's no one route. Some people have a really good experience with their roommate and end up becoming best friends. Other people enjoy their roommate, but maybe they're not best friends, you know. I've met some of my friends through very like specific clubs, like geography club. Other friends I've made just in a class. You know, you're sitting in lecture, maybe you don't understand something, you just turn to your side and you're like, hey, like, can you help me with this? Maybe you have a study group for that class. There's so many different things going on campus and in the city of Berkeley that I really feel like, so long as you put yourself out there and participate and show up, you're really able to find such a wide variety of people that you're bound to click with at least a few of them, whether it's through clubs or maybe a cultural event. I know there's a huge Brazilian festival in Berkeley that I want to go to. So that's another place that you can meet friends or cement a relationship with someone in your class. You know, there's so many different ways to just be active. And I'd also say that for online right now as well. I've actually been able to meet quite a few new friends just from this online format. My geography club is still going on. I've been able to talk in breakout rooms with people from my class and get to know them better, which has been really nice. I'm figuring out when to meet with the study group this week, so I'm getting to know them a lot better. Or if you have a campus job, there's so many different things to get involved in, whether you're in person or online, that I honestly don't think it's, again, I don't think it's super hard to make friends. I think especially when you first get to Berkeley, everyone wants to, you know, talk and learn about each other. And there's just sort of that atmosphere there of like, wow, all these people are so cool. Let me hear more about them. That's at least my experience. And so I think it's a really exciting process, but it really depends on who you are and what you get involved with.
Thank you, Will, for that insight. And now this is a question that any of you can answer, or all of you can answer. And the question is, what has been one of your favorite classes here at Berkeley? And anyone can start off with this question.
I guess I can go ahead. I would say one of my favorite classes at Berkeley was actually a seminar. So at Berkeley, when you're in your first and second year, just to kind of preface, I came from a high school with 100 people in my graduating class. So when I came to Berkeley and walked into like my first lecture, which for chemistry, which had about 300, 400 people in the classroom with me, it was kind of intimidating and it felt difficult to adjust to, but it was actually a pretty smooth process, kind of with the resources that Berkeley gives you in terms of like tutoring and advising. But in your first and second year, you can actually take these cool seminar classes, which are on very niche topics and has anywhere from like 10 to 20 people, 25 people in them. And so I took one that was taught in the Faculty of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science, and I was able to take a class in how we can use like technology to better understand the brain. And so that's what kind of led me to like doing the research that I do now at UCSF, and kind of connected and showed me like what I could actually be interested in terms of like a long-term career. And it was only 15, 20 people. We even got to go visit like the MRI and imaging center in the Department of Biomedical Sciences at Berkeley, and got to see an MRI scan done and how the different parts of the MRI, which was really cool. So it was a very interactive class, and it got kind of cut short because of our semester transitioning online, but it was still a really cool experience. And I would say I highly recommend, if you come to Berkeley, to take some of those seminar classes. You can even take them in like something not related to your department. I had a friend who was a public health major who took one about race and like history in America, which he found really interesting. And so I would say you can kind of do it in whatever you want, but it's a great way to have some units in your schedule, but also explore a field that you may not have learned more about.
Yeah, I can go next. I also took one of those freshman seminar classes and really enjoyed it. But my favorite class was probably the first geography class that I took. It was called Geography 50 AC, and it was all about California. I took it in my first semester because, as I said, I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I thought that it maybe sounded interesting and like cool to learn about the state that I live in. And it really just like, I don't know, it really explained what human geography as a subject is to me, and changed the way that I think about the state that I live in, but also the world that I live in. Not to mention that the professor for that class is absolutely amazing. I went to his office hours a couple times, and office hours, for those of you who don't know, are where professors or graduate student instructors host time where students can come and talk to them about any questions they have about the class or about research or about life in general, what to study. So I went to his office hours a few times, and he really got to know me to the point that over winter break, because I'm local to Berkeley, right after I had taken his class, I ran into him in the grocery store and was able to introduce him to my mom. So that really made that class one of my favorites as well. But the content of it was also super interesting, and yeah, really just changed my perspective and got me to think in ways that I never considered before, and also helped me find the thing that I want to major in.
Yeah, for me, I'm currently in the class that Beatrice was just mentioning, and I definitely second. The professor is amazing, and it's a great class to sort of reevaluate how I've grown up thinking about California. I think for me, I'll answer with a class that I guess I really didn't want to take, somewhat dreading, but actually ended up becoming one of my favorites. So I had to take a writing requirement while at Berkeley. Most students have to take at least one semester, some two, some none. It depends if you're able to test out or not. And the class I had to take was R1B, so it's a certain writing class. And I have not been very good at writing ever, really. So the thought of taking a really intensive writing course was pretty daunting to me. I ended up taking it this summer, and it was actually online too. And I think the great thing about Berkeley courses is just such a wide variety. You've already sort of heard it with Isha and Beatrice, your classes were so different. For me, I was able to choose a writing class in linguistics, which meant the entire time I was writing about endangered languages. And that was fascinating and a topic I had never learned about. So instead of being this sort of daunting writing class that was, going to be like other writing classes that I had taken where it just felt forced, I actually ended up really enjoying the subject, enjoying writing. I went to every single hours for the whole class, and it was just a really good experience. I can also second that those seminars are fantastic. My first semester at Berkeley, I took one, and it was just a camping trip. We just went down the California coast and went to a national park, and that was the entire class. That's all we did. So there's so many different options. I feel like I've been really privileged and lucky to take exclusively classes that I'm really passionate about. I think that's one of the really wonderful things about the College of Letters and Sciences, that there's so much flexibility. So, I mean, I've really loved all of my classes, to be honest. It's hard to pick one. I'm really excited for next semester where I'll be taking African linguistics or political ecology or starting a new language or two. So there's just so many great options, as you've already heard. It's sometimes hard for me to pick.
I'm kind of interested in the camping class now. That sounds pretty chill, honestly. Well, thank you all for sharing your favorite classes, though. I'm sure they're all nice. Now, before we go into our next question, we've just launched another poll. This one's just asking what are you interested in, what major and all that. So definitely fill that out so we get a better idea of who we're talking to. And now moving on to the next question. This question is for Isha, and the question is, what is the professor-student relationship like? How open are they to helping you? Isha?
Absolutely. So I would say the professor-student relationship at UC Berkeley is definitely like a two-way street. It's something where you have to kind of put the effort in to reach out to them, because they are all, in my experience, they're always willing to help, but you also need to kind of make that first step and approach them, which I know can be daunting. It was for me as a freshman, and now I've kind of been able to grow and be a lot more comfortable with my professors. So I guess for this, I can like share a quick kind of experience I had. So for one of my classes this semester that I'm taking, it's a very, very challenging class in biomedical engineering, specifically on like signals and systems. And it's kind of like three electrical engineering classes combined into one. So it's been very difficult, but our professor has been so adjusting and flexible. And for instance, my entire bioengineering department basically made all our final exams into some kind of final project. So it's kind of less daunting for us to do final exams on like a virtual platform. And my professor for this particular class, in the start of the semester, he said, you can come to me if you need like advice for your career, advice for like research or anything that you may need. And so I went to him kind of asking for some advice before like my interviews for a lot of different summer internships. And he went out of his way and sent me links to like different articles and links to different YouTube videos and stuff that I could watch to kind of have a better understanding for like a technical interview I had, where I needed to know something more about the stuff I've learned in that class, kind of going beyond. And he was so supportive. He even like checked in with me at the end of class being like, how'd your interview go? And so it's really great to see that they care about the students and care about us like applying what we're learning at Berkeley on a larger scale. And so that's kind of been one of my experiences. And I'm sure kind of from Beatrice's story with her professor for her geography class, you can see that like it's a relationship beyond just it being a hierarchy. It's a relationship where they really want to see us grow. And I'm taking 3 more classes in my last year with that professor. And so it'll be really great to kind of build that connection with him as well.
Thank you, Isha. I can definitely agree that the professors I've also like reached out and talked to I've kept in touch with them for multiple semesters, and some of them have helped me in the transition of like changing my major and all that. So I definitely agree that the professors are really supportive here. So moving on to some more questions now. What has your experience been like learning over Zoom, and how did the transition go from in-person classes to online learning? And this one's for Beatrice.
Yeah, so I think as you can tell from some parts of Isha and Will's answers, our professors are really attentive to their students and what their students need at the moment. So I think that's helped a lot with our transition to Zoom, although it's not ideal for anyone. I think that especially from the spring to the fall, I didn't take classes this summer, so I had kind of a break from it. But from the spring to the fall, with the additional time to plan, I think that classes have gone a lot more smoothly over Zoom, and professors are always really certain to check in with their students ahead of time. They don't just jump into their content. They always ask, or like acknowledge that everyone's in different places. Everyone has different things going on. I think that helps a lot to kind of build the relationship between professor and student over Zoom. I also think that Berkeley did a great job with this by giving us all access to Zoom Pro, because that means that your meetings don't get cut off after 40 minutes. So you can host study sessions with your classes. I know my French class has had a few that we pulled together outside of our normal class time. So that's just one example. And then also the other thing that I think has been really beneficial about Zoom is that you don't have to walk anywhere. So like if you want to go to office hours, you don't have to trek all the way across campus. Or if you want to go get tutoring at the Student Learning Center or through another service, you simply click the link to another Zoom call and you can get that help. We also have our Student Technology Equity Program, I think it's called, the STEP program. So that ensured that all students have access to Wi-Fi and computers for this semester. So yeah, I think that while online learning isn't ideal for anyone, we'd all rather be in person. I really think Berkeley has done the best job that they can with making it work for everyone.
Yeah,
Thank you. And Will? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I can add
Will.
on a little bit. Yeah, so Beatrice mentioned a lot of really great programs that we have, and I definitely agree. It's also been really helpful to still have clubs going on and things like that. So I also took courses over the summer that were online, so I feel like I sort of have like a longer experience with it. So it's been going well. I think something to note that actually I've been pleasantly surprised by is that there are a lot more opportunities to go to like events or meet with people that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to. So for example, for my URAP position doing research, we had a few meetings with ambassadors to the EU or other diplomats and officials who are currently living in Europe. which otherwise wouldn't have been possible if we were in person. Or I guess we could have called, but it probably wouldn't have happened because people didn't really think to do that as much. I've also, in my linguistics class, it was actually pretty cool. Last week we've been having a lot of guest speakers come, but last week we had a Hollywood dialect coach come talk to us about what she does. And so she was actually just on set with, it was like Gal Gadot and Ryan Gosling and a couple other famous movie stars. And she was telling us about some movies that she's helped actors basically on how to talk and how to sound like someone else. And this was super fascinating because we wouldn't have been able to get her to come to Berkeley. And it was a really great mix of sort of like fun, interesting pop culture, as well as important linguistic concepts that we're talking about in my class. This one's sort of random as well, but last night I actually went to the Nigerian Eco-Linguistics Association conference, which I found online, and I zoomed in on at like 1 a.m. I probably should have been working on other projects, but it was really fun. I got to be on a Zoom call basically with all of these Nigerian professors of linguistics and hear about their research and what they're doing. And it's sort of a field that I don't know a ton about, eco-linguistics. Most people have never heard of it, but it's just another great experience that was made feasible through the online medium. So it's definitely different. Obviously, there are lots of ways that we need to adapt and, make sure that learning is still happening. And that's been difficult at times, but I think there's also some good things that have been able to take place, even though we're in this different environment.
Thank you, Will and Beatrice, for sharing your experiences. Definitely some interesting movie dialect stuff. I don't know. Those are like so random, but I'm also interested in that now. I might have to start taking some classes that you're taking, Will. But anyways, moving on to our next question. The question is, since Berkeley is in an urban area, how safe is it around campus?
Yeah, I can take that. So this was definitely kind of something that I had to really think about and reflect at every kind of university I visited after I was accepted. Just because moving away from Toronto, like so far away, definitely kind of being on the West Coast was a big risk. I applied to college when I was 16, came to Berkeley when I was 17, so it was kind of really nerve-wracking to be in a brand new place without even being a legal adult. And so I would say Berkeley in itself has been a fairly safe campus because of the resources that our kind of university has put in place for us. So we do have our own kind of campus police, and they're trained to kind of work with the student body and are also getting a lot of training in light of like recent events, which has been really good to see our university kind of adapting to global events that are happening. Secondly, we also have a lot of services when we're in person. So we have a free night safety shuttle, which I used really often. I lived in the dorms for my first and second year, but if I was visiting my friends who lived in apartments, which a lot of upperclassmen and second years do, there is a free night safety shuttle that runs in like downtown Berkeley areas and also has stops right in front of the dorms. And so I would just kind of take that if I needed to come back and didn't want to walk alone at night. We also have a bear walk service. So that allowed me to kind of, if I was at a library and I didn't want to walk back to my dorm alone, they're trained student officers who kind of walk with you. And one of my friends is one of those officers, and so you can request people. So sometimes I'll request him and be like, "Oh, he can walk me back." And yeah, it's just I think Berkeley recognizes that it is a public university, so it is an open campus, like it's not gated. So they do have a lot of kind of precautions put in place to make sure that students feel like safe on campus. And I feel super, super safe in the dorms. There's a 3-step security system with your keys, your student ID, and also a security monitor at night to check in any guests. So that also has a lot of different layers of security, and I've kind of been on the other side of it as a resident assistant in the dorm. So I was helping kind of manage and make sure students felt safe in the campus. And I can kind of for sure say that that I do feel very safe on the Berkeley campus.
Safety is definitely an important topic, and thank you for talking about that, Isha. So you have a couple more questions. You have 20 minutes left, so definitely ask some more questions in the Q&A function using the Q&A function below. But we'll continue on. So this question is for Beatrice, and the question is: are there any favorite memorable experiences in the dorms? How would you describe the dorms at Berkeley?
Yeah, so I'll start with the second part of that question. I would say the dorms at Berkeley are a little different than a lot of colleges because they're technically not on our campus, but don't worry, you won't be walking super far. They'll be just a block away at the shortest, or actually our newest dorm is right across the street from campus. So you're practically on campus. There's a lot of different options. You can live in a traditional high-rise style dorm where like you'll share a bathroom with everyone on your floor. And these are both single gender and mixed gender floors. You can choose whatever you prefer. We also have suite style dorms. So that's where you and another room will share a more private bathroom, and you have a little bit of a shared living space. Most of our dorms are doubles or triples, and you can kind of rank out all these preferences, and they're also kind of scattered on different sides of our campus. So you can choose what you think would be best for you when you're filling out your housing application. I personally lived in Unit 1, which is just a block away from our campus. I had this amazing view of the entire San Francisco Bay. So that was really lucky. If I had been on the other side of the hall, I would have seen the courtyard, which wouldn't be terrible, but also not as great. And then the dorms have a lot of social spaces. So there's lounges on every other floor. There's also laundry rooms. And then the ground floor has like a bigger lounge with like a pool table and a ping pong table. So lots of places to hang out and study with friends or whatever you want to do. I would say my most memorable experience, there's a lot, so it's hard to choose. But one of my first nights in the dorm, I was with some new friends that I had just made through orientation. And there's another shared space in the dorm is the kitchen. So there's a kitchen with an oven and a microwave and a fridge and stuff, but no like baking implements or utensils. But we decided that we really wanted to make cookies. So we headed out to Walgreens, which is right near campus, and we bought some cookie mix, but we didn't have like any of the right ingredients. So we ended up with kind of cookie dough, and then we realized we didn't have a baking tray. So we ended up with a plate that we put in the microwave. We almost set the smoke alarm off because of that, because that's not how you make cookies at all. And the security monitor that Isha was talking about that checks people into the dorms at night came up to us and was like, if you guys set the smoke alarm off, or if like I smell smoke one more time, I'm gonna write you up. And obviously we were really scared because we were freshmen, we had just arrived at college. But looking back, it was just a really funny experience and a great memory to start off our dorm experience.
Interesting way to make cookies. I don't know if that works or is safe, but it's the dorm life. It's the dorm life is what I'll say. Now moving on to our next question. This question is for Will and Isha, if you would like to talk about what is research like at UC Berkeley? Will?
Yeah, Isha can also definitely add on a lot to this. I think she has a lot more experience, but in short, I'll say that it's really accessible. So URAP is our undergraduate research program essentially, and at the beginning of the semester, you get this long list, like dozens of different opportunities in any department, and you basically choose ones to apply to them, and they match you up with good opportunities. This fall was my first time applying, and I just applied to one and happened to get it. And it's been a really great experience. I've been able to work with the director of the institute as well as multiple, actually, different people within the institute on a variety of different projects, whether it's reporting on events or looking into research on race and migration during coronavirus. So that's been a really fun experience. I think something to note too is that you can do that at any point. There's someone who did research for the first time in my group who's a fourth year, someone else who it's their first semester at Berkeley. So there's really a wide range. You can also just email a professor or maybe a graduate student that you know well, or maybe that you don't know, asking how you might be able to help. We are the #1 public research institution in the world, so there are a lot of different research projects going on, and there's also a lot of people who want students to help. I think that having sort of diversity in age and experience is actually really helpful for a lot of these projects. And I think that I've heard a lot of professors mention how having different students think about their research or how having to explain it in different ways has been really helpful. So I think it's a really great opportunity for everyone involved, and it's definitely really accessible.
Yeah, you nailed it. I definitely don't have more to kind of add. I would just say one thing I've learned at Berkeley, I also applied like in my first year, and I would say is there's no harm in applying to things. There's so many different things at Berkeley. Apply, like just do it. For my UCSF internship, it was such a long shot, and I added it on the last day. I was like, you know what? Let's just apply. Let's see how it goes, and it ended up working out. So that's definitely my biggest advice, regardless of what institution you go to.
Thank you. And now one of our attendees just asked a question, and this question is, what do you think about the student services at Berkeley? Is there staff that helps students get internships/jobs? How accessible are they? And Isha can go for this answer.
Yeah, I can start answering this, and if any of you two have anything to add, please do. I would say yes, there are a ton of advisors and really great people to help you. So for me personally, I have one advisor from the engineering student services. So that's like the head, that's like the main kind of advising for all engineering students. Then I have another advisor within the bioengineering department. And then I also have a faculty advisor who's a professor in the bioengineering department. And so I would say those are three people who've helped me a lot navigating through the whole process. So for instance, I told my bioengineering advisor that I was like really interested in helping with recruitment for incoming students. And so I got to kind of help out with Cal Day specifically for the bioengineering department. And she also helped me like get a UGSI position, which is like an undergraduate TA kind of position. So they're definitely very willing to help. But as I kind of emphasize, it is a two-way street where you kind of reach out and you kind of have to show that interest and let them know about what your interests are, and they're more than willing to help. So I kind of have a habit of scheduling a meeting with my BioE advisor like once a month, or maybe at least once a semester, to just keep her updated on like what I'm doing, what help I need from them. So I would say it's very, very accessible. I can book an appointment within a week and have a good turnaround. And have a meeting in that week, and they've even been more helpful if anything was like urgent. So definitely been a really great resource in terms of accessibility, but also you kind of have to learn to be proactive when you're at university, to make sure you reach out to those resources as well.
Thank you, Isha, for your answer on that. And with that, we are closing in with about a little over 10 minutes left. So we can transition into one of my favorite questions and our final question of the day. And that question is, what is your Berkeley story, or why Berkeley? And any of you can feel free to start this off.
I can start. So my Berkeley story starts with me never wanting to come to Berkeley. I really thought college had to be an experience that was far away from home, and Berkeley is right next to my house. So it never crossed my mind until I was about to submit my UC application, which just allows you to check the box for each campus that you want to send it to. So something in the back of my mind was like, maybe Berkeley's the place for you. So I checked that box, didn't really think about it, didn't even open my admissions decision for a couple days after it came out. But once I did and I opened it, My mom, who also went to Berkeley, said to me, there's no way you can't just even consider the school. So I didn't go to Cal Day, which is our big open house, but I did go on a campus tour. And when I went on that tour, I was lucky enough to see the campus in person and really view it from the perspective of a student, which I had never done before. And I saw that Berkeley had everything I wanted in a school. So as I talked about earlier, it's in that perfect place where you have access to nature, but you're still in a city, which is definitely something that I wanted. I also wanted to go to a big school with those football game days, all the school spirit, the traditions, and I knew that Berkeley had that. And then coming in undeclared, I wanted to go somewhere where I knew that no matter what I ended up studying, I would be working with professors who are at the top of their field. And I knew that was definitely the case at Berkeley. So that's why I chose Berkeley. Even after I chose it, I was still a little hesitant that I wouldn't feel independent. I wouldn't feel like I was getting away from home. But once I got here, I realized that the people that I was surrounded with in our campus community really made it feel like a world away from home because they're so passionate and so driven in a way that I had never experienced in my life before. So I think that that idea of who you're surrounding yourself with really has the potential to make your college experience what it is, and really makes me feel like I'm in a different world than the one I grew up in, even if I'm still in the same place. So yeah, that's my Berkeley story.
I can go next. I definitely relate to a lot of what you just mentioned, Beatrice. I think for me too, it sort of starts out with me not really, maybe not really giving Berkeley a fair chance, but just not knowing much about the campus. I ended up applying and I got waitlisted and eventually ended up getting in. And I didn't really get excited about it until I came to Cal Day, which is our big open house. And I got to go to the linguistics lab and got an ultrasound of my tongue so I could see how I was pronouncing things. That's like crazy. I didn't even know that existed. And I saw some other cultural celebrations, some just really passionate people, a lot going on, and sort of started feeling more happy about coming here and thinking about all the different opportunities I would have. Then I deferred my acceptance and went somewhere to another country for a year. And something I noticed was while I was there, every single student that I met was saying that study abroad was the best part of their college experience, that they were so sad to like have to go back to their regular school and things like that. And I was thinking, yeah, I've loved to study abroad. It's been fantastic, but I don't want it to be downhill from here. Luckily, that has absolutely not been the case. Berkeley has been far and away much better than my study abroad experience, which says a lot considering most people say study abroad is their best decision in college. And sometimes it's actually even felt more international and more, I don't know, foreign to me than when I was literally living abroad. Like Beatrice mentioned, it's like a whole world on campus here. I've been able to get involved in so many different activities. You've heard from all of us today about how many different things we're involved in, what we're passionate about. Just scale that up to tens of thousands of students. It's just, there's so much going on. Whether I'm going to hang gliding club or learning about Nigerian eco-linguistics, there's so many different things going on that I've been really excited and proud and happy to call this place home and find my community here. And I really can't stress enough that coming to Berkeley, you will never be bored, whether it's online, in person, it doesn't matter what you're doing, you'll be interested in it, you'll find your passion, you'll find out how you can be a better citizen, a better person, be more involved, all of those things. And so I've just been really grateful for that experience.
Yeah, thank you so much to both of you for sharing that. I love hearing all of your Berkeley stories. For me, my story started it started long before I kind of applied to Berkeley. I've lived in 3 different countries and moved over 10 schools in my life, and Berkeley will be the longest that I'll be at an institution. I haven't been at a school for more than more than 3 years. And so it was really, for me, an alumni at my high school who attended Berkeley Engineering, and he would always post about it, had so much school spirit. I hope we've kind of conveyed that to you, that we truly love being at Berkeley and are very happy to be here. And so I thought, okay, the bioengineering programs looks really interesting. The engineering school at Berkeley is very well ranked and has a lot of great resources. Let's apply. Let's see how it goes. But keep in mind, I'd never visited the campus before, let alone I'd never been to California. And so then I also, similar to Beatrice, I visited the Berkeley campus on a regular Tuesday. I couldn't make it to Cal Day, and I was really able to see Berkeley in its very natural form, where I was walking by people who were flyering for different clubs that they're involved in. I was walking by people who were having really intense conversations about midterms and classes. And I also, one of the interactions that really stuck with me was when I passed a professor and a student, and they were actually walking back from one of their classes together, which was really interesting to see that a professor and student were able to interact in such a very natural way. And so what led me to Berkeley was realizing on that campus tour that everyone who is at Berkeley truly wants to be at Berkeley. And it's a place where you're surrounded by excellence in all the people that that you interact with, kind of what Will said. And so I'm very happy to be at a place where I can motivate the people around me, but also be motivated by my peers and be motivated by my professors and even my co-workers as campus ambassadors. And so I think that is the reason why I chose Berkeley. It's a place where I know I'm constantly going to be challenged to be a better citizen and to be a change maker, as we like to call it at Cal. And so that's kind of why I chose Berkeley.
Thank you, Isha, Will, and Beatrice. And with just a few minutes left, that does bring us to an end of our virtual panel. But before that, just a few notes. Feel free to follow us on social media at Visit UC Berkeley. And if you still have any more questions that we did not get to, you can always email tour@berkeley.edu, where one of us student ambassadors will answer your questions. In addition, we also have a Bear Talk blog where our campus ambassadors blog about their daily lives, Berkeley experiences, what they're up to in quarantine or COVID times, all that at beartalk.berkeley.edu. We also have other recorded virtual panels that are available on our YouTube channel. So definitely check that out at Visit UC Berkeley. And if you're interested in any updates regarding the coronavirus and how Berkeley is dealing with that situation, you can always go to coronavirus.berkeley.edu. Just a few more things. We are celebrating our 150 years of women here at Cal. So that you can check out that celebration at 150w.berkeley.edu. And our last 2 points, if you're interested in an admissions presentation, you can always sign up on their website, admissions.berkeley.edu/visit. And lastly, we also have virtual visits and engineering specific visits. So if you're interested in learning more about the university and all that, definitely check out visit.berkeley.edu. And with that, that does bring us to an end of our virtual panel today. Thank you all for joining us. But before we part ways, let's end this with a Go Bears on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Go Bears!
Go Bears!
Go Bears!